Season 1 of Jujutsu Kaisen opens with Yuji Itadori restrained in a sealed room as Satoru Gojo questions which presence controls his body, warning that his fate is death. The story then follows Yuji, a high schooler with extraordinary physical ability who chooses the Occult Research Club to stay close to his hospitalized grandfather. Before dying, his grandfather urges him to use his strength to help others, a message that shapes Yuji's actions. Elsewhere, Megumi Fushiguro, a jujutsu sorcerer, tracks a dangerous cursed object, one of Ryomen Sukuna's fingers, which Yuji unknowingly gave to his classmates, Sasaki and Iguchi. As the protective seal weakens, curses are drawn to it. When the two students unwrap the object at school, they are attacked by powerful curses. Fushiguro arrives and attempts to fight them using his shikigami, but the situation quickly escalates. Yuji rushes to the school to save his friends, driven by his grandfather's final words. Despite lacking any knowledge of curses, he confronts them directly and manages to hold his own for a moment. However, both he and Fushiguro are overwhelmed by a stronger curse. With no other option and seeing his friends about to die, Yuji swallows the cursed finger, becoming the host of Ryomen Sukuna. Sukuna briefly takes control, transforming Yuji's body with markings and overwhelming power, effortlessly defeating the curse while expressing a desire to slaughter humans. Moments later, Yuji regains control of his body, shocking Fushiguro, who prepares to exorcise him. Meanwhile, Gojo Satoru steps in, recognizing Yuji's rare ability to suppress Sukuna, setting the stage for his uncertain fate. To test him, Gojo allows Sukuna to take over briefly, easily overpowering him before forcing him back. He explains that Yuji's ability to suppress Sukuna is extremely rare. Instead of executing him immediately, Gojo proposes a plan. Yuji will consume all of Sukuna's fingers, then be killed once the curse is fully exorcised. Yuji accepts this fate, choosing to help others despite knowing it will cost his life. He is then taken to Tokyo Jujutsu High, where he begins training as a sorcerer. Before enrollment, Gojo tests Yuji's resolve using a cursed corpse, forcing him to fight while explaining the importance of having a strong personal reason to face death. Yuji realizes that simply following his grandfather's words isn't enough. He must find his own purpose. After proving his determination, Yuji is officially accepted. Meanwhile, Megumi Fushiguro reflects on Yuji's selflessness, questioning his own beliefs about saving people. Meanwhile, Nobara Kugisaki arrives in Tokyo to join Yuji Itadori and Megumi Fushiguro. Satoru Gojo brings the trio to an abandoned building for a test, tasking them with exorcising curses to assess their readiness. Inside, Yuji and Nobara encounter a curse holding a child hostage. Yuji prepares to fight carefully, prioritizing the child's safety, while Nobara shows a far more direct and ruthless approach. As Yuji rescues the child, Nobara faces the curse alone and reveals her technique, using nails and a hammer to strike it through a straw doll. Despite the danger, she refuses to retreat, demonstrating her resolve as a sorcerer. Yuji returns and supports her, allowing them to defeat the curse together. The mission highlights the contrast between Yuji's instinct to save everyone and Nobara's acceptance that sorcerers must make harsh choices. After the exorcism, Nobara firmly establishes her identity, rejecting any expectations placed on her and declaring she will live true to herself. Gojo observes that both Yuji and Nobara possess the mentality needed to survive in the jujutsu world. Next, Yuji Itadori, Megumi Fushiguro, and Nobara Kugisaki are sent on a mission to a detention center where a special grade curse has appeared. The situation is far beyond their level, but they enter to rescue any survivors. Inside, they discover the environment has been completely overtaken by the curse's domain-like presence. They manage to find a few detainees, but a powerful curse quickly appears, overwhelming them. Realizing they cannot win, Megumi decides they must retreat. However, Yuji refuses to abandon the remaining survivors, choosing to fight. As the curse attacks, Yuji is severely outmatched and loses control, allowing Sukuna to take over his body. Sukuna effortlessly dominates the curse, displaying terrifying power, but instead of helping, he becomes interested only in himself. He rips Yuji's heart out to gain leverage, knowing Yuji cannot take back control without dying. When Megumi encounters Sukuna, he prepares to fight despite the massive gap in strength. Sukuna taunts him, explaining that Yuji is effectively dead unless he allows him to return. Sukuna then effortlessly overpowers Megumi, destroying his Shikigami and pushing him to his limits. Despite the gap in strength, Megumi refuses to back down. Reflecting on his past and his desire to save people he believes deserve it, he prepares to risk everything. Sukuna shows brief interest in Megumi's potential, but the fight ends when Yuji suddenly regains control of his body. Choosing not to revive himself, Yuji collapses, dying after thanking Megumi and urging him to live a long life. Back at Jujutsu High, Satoru Gojo learns of Yuji's death and suspects interference from higher authorities. Yuji's body is taken for examination, while Megumi and Nobara Kugisaki struggle to process his loss. Meanwhile, a group of intelligent curses allied with Suguru Geto discuss their plans, revealing their goal to eliminate Gojo and bring Sukuna to their side, setting a larger conflict in motion. Meanwhile, Yuji Itadori awakens inside Sukuna's innate domain, a space formed within his mind. Sukuna reveals they are not fully dead and offers a binding vow. He will revive Yuji, but in return, he can take control of the body for 1 minute at will, and Yuji must forget the agreement. Yuji refuses, leading to a brief fight, but Sukuna easily defeats him and forces the pact, restoring Yuji's heart. Yuji awakens in the morgue, surprising Satoru Gojo and Shoko Yeri. Gojo decides to keep Yuji's revival a secret while training him. Meanwhile, Megumi Fushiguro and Nobara Kugisaki continue their duties, unaware Yuji is alive. Elsewhere, a group of intelligent curses led by Jogo and Suguru Geto plan to seal Gojo using a special-grade cursed object known as the Prison Realm, recognizing they cannot defeat him directly. Gojo begins Yuji's training, explaining cursed energy and how to control it. Since Yuji lacks a natural technique, he must focus on channeling cursed energy into his physical attacks. His training involves maintaining a steady flow of cursed energy while watching movies, using a cursed doll that attacks if his focus slips. As Yuji struggles to improve, Megumi seeks ways to grow stronger himself. Meanwhile, Gojo heads out and is confronted by Jogo, setting up a major clash between the strongest sorcerer and a powerful cursed spirit. Jogo, a special-grade curse who attacks using volcanic eruptions and flames. Despite Jogo's powerful offensive techniques, Gojo remains completely unharmed, revealing his ability to nullify attacks using his infinity barrier. He explains that nothing can physically reach him unless he allows it. Gojo toys with Jogo, effortlessly countering every attack and overwhelming him. To teach Yuji Itadori, Gojo brings him to the battlefield and demonstrates the concept of domain expansion. Jogo responds by activating his own domain, Coffin of the Iron Mountain, trapping them in a lava-filled space designed to guarantee his attacks land. Gojo counters by revealing his own domain expansion, Unlimited Void, overwhelming Jogo with infinite sensory information and completely disabling him. Gojo then prepares to extract information from the defeated curse, but Hanami intervenes, rescuing Jogo and escaping with him after briefly engaging Gojo. The appearance of multiple special-grade curses confirms a coordinated enemy group targeting Gojo. Meanwhile, Yuji witnesses Gojo's overwhelming strength firsthand and realizes the massive gap between them. At Tokyo Jujutsu High, Panda warns that Kyoto students are arriving, including dangerous upperclassmen Aoi Todo and Mai Zenin. Megumi Fushiguro and Nobara Kugisaki are quickly confronted by them, while tensions escalate over Yuji Itadori's supposed death. Todo immediately targets Megumi, demanding to know his type of girl to judge his personality. When Megumi refuses, Todo deems him boring and attacks him. Nobara clashes with Mai, who mocks her team and insults Yuji. The confrontation escalates into a violent skirmish between students, with Todo overwhelming Megumi in close combat. The fight is interrupted when other Tokyo second years arrive. Toge Inumaki uses cursed speech to restrain Todo, while Panda physically pushes him back. The conflict is temporarily halted, but hostility remains high between the schools. Elsewhere, Maki Zenin confronts her sister Mai, revealing their strained relationship and Maki's inability to use cursed energy. Despite this, she relies on cursed tools and determination, driven by her desire to prove herself to her family. Nobara begins to respect Maki's strength after learning her background. We also see Satoru Gojo confronting Kyoto's principal, criticizing the higher-ups for sending students into dangerous missions and warning that stronger curses are emerging. Meanwhile, a new threat is introduced as Mahito appears, responsible for a gruesome series of human deaths. Next, we introduces Yoshino Junpei, a quiet student who is bullied at school. After enduring abuse, he fantasizes about revenge and skips class to escape into a movie theater. There, he encounters his bullies again, but a mysterious man named Mahito appears, and soon after, the bullies are found dead and grotesquely disfigured. Junpei confronts Mahito, who casually reveals he may have killed them, and begins manipulating Junpei's emotions, questioning his hatred and curiosity about curses. Instead of fear, Junpei becomes intrigued, asking if he can learn the same power. Meanwhile, Yuji Itadori is sent with Grade 1 sorcerer Kento Nanami to investigate a series of cursed deaths at the cinema. Nanami, a former salaryman turned sorcerer, is introduced as a highly efficient and pragmatic fighter. He explains cursed techniques, including his ability to create weak points in enemies through precise strikes. During the mission, Yuji develops his own technique, Divergent Fist, enhancing his punches with delayed cursed energy impact. Together, he and Nanami defeat several curses, but discover that the victims were once human, suggesting a deeper experiment behind the killings. Nanami deduces the enemy is intentionally using cursed residuals as bait. He chooses to pursue the investigation carefully, while keeping Yuji slightly separated from the main threat. Elsewhere, Mahito continues manipulating Junpei, revealing that curses are born from human negative emotions and subtly drawing him closer into his ideology. Meanwhile, Yuji unknowingly moves toward Mahito's location, setting up a direct confrontation. Season continues the escalating conflict between sorcerers and curses through Junpei Yoshino's growing connection with Mahito. Junpei is bullied again at school, reinforcing his isolation and emotional detachment from others. Later, he meets Mahito, who continues to manipulate him by questioning human emotions like love and indifference. Mahito takes Junpei to a sewer hideout and demonstrates his cursed technique by deforming humans, revealing his ability called idol transfiguration, which alters the shape of the soul itself. He claims humans are meaningless and encourages Junpei to abandon moral constraints. Junpei, increasingly influenced, begins to view humanity with growing resentment. Meanwhile, Kento Nanami continues investigating the curse user responsible for recent deaths. He encounters Mahito directly in the sewer and engages him in combat. Nanami's precise curse technique allows him to injure Mahito, but Mahito reveals he can manipulate his soul, making physical damage unreliable. Their battle escalates as Mahito experiments with human souls. At the same time, Yuji Itadori and Kiyotaka Ijichi attempt to track Junpei. Yuji successfully intercepts him and confirms that Junpei can see curses. He separates Junpei from his teacher, trying to speak with him directly and understand his situation. Meanwhile, Nanami activates his overtime state, significantly increasing his cursed energy output as the fight against Mahito intensifies, while Yuji begins forming a fragile connection with Junpei. Nanami briefly overwhelms Mahito, revealing his full technique and even managing to injure him. But Mahito's ability to manipulate the soul allows him to recover. Realizing the fight is not decisive, Nanami retreats after causing significant damage. Meanwhile, Yuji Itadori continues investigating Junpei Yoshino and successfully begins building a bond with him by talking about movies and everyday life. Junpei's mother welcomes Yuji into their home, giving Junpei a rare moment of normalcy and emotional comfort. However, Yuji begins sensing something is wrong. That night, Sukuna's finger is mysteriously placed in Junpei's home. Junpei's mother is later killed by a cursed spirit attracted to the object. The incident pushes Junpei into emotional collapse, and he becomes fully consumed by grief and anger. Nanami informs Yuji of the tragedy and tells him to stay out of the situation, but Yuji refuses, determined to intervene. At the same time, Mahito manipulates Junpei further, convincing him that humans and sorcerers are responsible for his suffering and guiding him toward revenge. Mahito and Suguru Geto activate a barrier around Junpei's school, trapping everyone inside. Students fall unconscious as chaos begins to spread. Yuji arrives at the school and confronts Junpei, who has now fully aligned himself with Mahito's ideology. Nanami quickly takes control of the battlefield, warning Yuji to stay focused and not get dragged into Mahito's manipulation of emotions. Mahito, however, remains calm and playful, treating the fight like an experiment rather than a battle for survival. Nanami activates his overtime state, removing the restrictions on his cursed energy. His strength and speed increase dramatically as he begins landing precise, brutal strikes on Mahito. He uses his ratio technique to consistently target weak points in Mahito's body, forcing the curse into a defensive position. Yuji watches closely, realizing how overwhelming a Grade 1 sorcerer truly is when serious. Mahito adapts by shifting and distorting his soul, constantly reshaping his body to avoid fatal damage. Even when Nanami slices through him, Mahito continues regenerating through his idle transfiguration technique, making it clear that conventional attacks alone won't finish him. Yuji finally joins the fight properly, coordinating with Nanami. The two begin pressuring Mahito from different angles. Nanami with calculated strikes, and Yuji with raw, explosive, cursed energy-infused punches. Yuji struggles at first, still shaken by Junpei's death, but Nanami pushes him to accept the reality of being a sorcerer and continue fighting. Mahito, amused by Yuji's growth and emotional instability, tries to break him mentally by speaking about the nature of souls and humanity. He attempts to manipulate Yuji's hesitation, but Yuji resists, focusing on protecting others and ending the cycle of suffering. As the battle intensifies, Mahito creates openings using transfigured humans and rapid soul-shifting tactics. Nanami and Yuji manage to adapt, landing multiple heavy hits that force Mahito into retreat. Realizing he is at risk, Mahito uses a distraction to separate the two opponents. Nanami continues chasing Mahito alone, while Yuji is briefly left behind, forcing him to push forward despite exhaustion. Mahito eventually decides that continuing the fight is not ideal and begins preparing to withdraw completely, acknowledging both Yuji and Nanami as dangerous threats to his plans. Before escaping, Mahito promises that their encounters are far from over. Nanami, still composed, acknowledges the enemy's strength, but confirms they now understand him better. Yuji, frustrated but determined, vows to become stronger so he will never be powerless again in a situation like Junpei's. Jogo recovers in a hot spring while Mahito and Geto discuss their next move. Mahito is still affected by his encounter with Sukuna, but Geto pushes the plan forward. Collect Sukuna's fingers and eventually control him. Their next target becomes the fingers stored inside Jujutsu High. At school, Gojo and Nanami discuss Yuji's situation after recent missions. They hide the truth about Sukuna's finger from him to avoid psychological impact, while Nanami worries Yuji may become a target again. Gojo remains confident Yuji will handle it. Yuji arrives excited to reunite with his classmates, while Gojo teases a surprise. Nobara arrives and learns the Kyoto Sister School exchange event will be held in Tokyo. Kyoto students arrive shortly after, led by Mai Zenin and Aoi Todo, along with Miwa, Kamo, and others, creating immediate tension. Gojo introduces Yuji dramatically, but his classmates react coldly due to recent events. Yuji is awkward and emotional, while Nobara and Megumi confront him privately. He apologizes, still shaken by what happened earlier. The teachers announce the event, a team battle where students must exercise the most Grade 2 curses within the school grounds. No killing or serious injury is allowed. This marks the start of a controlled but competitive clash between Kyoto and Tokyo. Kyoto's side immediately plans to eliminate Yuji. Gakuganji supports this, while Todo ignores orders completely, showing no interest in authority or strategy. Other Kyoto students show mixed feelings, with some hesitant and others fully committed. Gojo suspects internal corruption within Jujutsu society and asks Utahime to monitor Kyoto's side. He mocks her lightly, but the warning about cursed spirit collaboration adds tension. Before training begins, Megumi asks Yuji if he is all right. Yuji admits he's still affected by recent events, but refuses to let it weaken him. Determined, he prepares to move forward. The sister school exchange event begins under the supervision of the teachers, who observe the battle from a control room. Gojo gives the signal to start while teasing Utahime, immediately setting a chaotic tone for the event. The Tokyo team splits up strategically. Panda and Nobara form one unit, Megumi operates separately for tracking, and Yuji is assigned as a lone target bait due to Kyoto's clear hostility toward him. Soon, Kyoto students begin actively hunting Yuji. To-Do arrives first, blocking Yuji's path and immediately engaging him in combat. Yuji responds with a knee strike, and the rest of the battlefield quickly disperses into multiple smaller clashes. To-Do proves overwhelming in raw strength, landing heavy blows and throwing Yuji around. Despite the beating, Yuji refuses to stay down and continues fighting, irritating Todo. The Kyoto sorcerer becomes curious rather than dismissive, impressed by Yuji's endurance. During their clash, Todo suddenly asks Yuji about his type in women. Yuji gives a strange but honest answer, which unexpectedly excites Todo. This triggers an imaginative sequence in Todo's mind where he envisions Yuji as his ideal friend, bonding over everyday life and shared experiences. In reality, Todo becomes emotionally overwhelmed, dramatically declaring Yuji his best friend, completely shifting the tone of their fight from hostility to strange camaraderie. Elsewhere, Kyoto students continue targeting Yuji, but coordination begins to fall apart as Tokyo's team realizes something is off. The Grade 2 cursed spirits are not appearing as expected. Panda deduces that Kyoto's focus is entirely on eliminating Yuji instead of competing normally. Maki engages Kasumi Miwa, who reveals her motivation is financial stability and a simple life, contrasting sharply with the more intense sorcerer ideals. Their fight highlights differing reasons people enter Jujutsu society. Megumi encounters Noritoshi Kamo, leading to a tense standoff where suspicions about the assassination order are denied but not fully resolved. Back in Yuji's fight, Todo continues pushing him, criticizing his delayed cursed energy activation and forcing him to adapt under pressure. Despite being overpowered, Yuji starts showing signs of growth as the battle intensifies. To-Do continues fighting Yuji while actively teaching him mid-battle. He blocks Yuji's attacks easily, but encourages him to improve rather than just overpower him. Yuji's divergent fist is explained in detail as Todo identifies its weakness, cursed energy delay caused by poor flow from the core. He tells Yuji to better sync body and cursed energy instead of relying on raw output. Yuji begins to understand and adapts slightly, while Todo pushes him to grow stronger, treating the fight like training rather than a kill attempt. Elsewhere, Nobara confronts Momo over targeting Yuji, escalating tensions between Kyoto and Tokyo. Meanwhile, Panda engages Mechamaru, a remote-controlled puppet user. The fight reveals Mechamaru's true condition. His real body is weak and heavily restricted due to a binding vow, while his puppet fights using stored, cursed energy. Mechamaru uses ranged attacks and cannon-like blasts, but Panda adapts and closes distance. Panda reveals his true nature as a cursed corpse with multiple cores. He switches into his gorilla core, dramatically increasing his strength and overwhelming Mechamaru in close combat. Despite Mechamaru's attempts to outmaneuver him with ranged firepower and tactics, Panda counters by redirecting energy and landing heavy blows. During the fight, Panda shows unexpected empathy, acknowledging Mechamaru's isolation and questioning his reason for becoming a sorcerer. This moment briefly connects Mechamaru to his humanity, causing hesitation. Ultimately, Mechamaru withdraws from the fight rather than continue further damage. Meanwhile, Maki continues to dominate Kasumi in combat, proving the gap in skill between them. Kasumi confronts Maki, believing she was weak due to Mai's claims, but quickly realizes Maki's overwhelming strength. Maki pressures her with close combat and long-range curse tool attacks, eventually disarming her and proving her superior skill. Teachers watching the match debate Maki's potential promotion, though the Zenin clan opposes it. Meanwhile, Nobara battles Momo, who criticizes her appearance and claims female sorcerers must maintain image and reputation. Nobara rejects this idea, insisting strength matters more than looks or gender expectations. She uses her straw doll technique to counter Momo's aerial attacks and gains control of the fight. Mai intervenes, shooting Nobara from a distance, but Maki arrives and clashes with her. Their rivalry is revealed through flashbacks. Mai resents Maki's natural talent and the pressure it placed on her life, while Maki feels responsible for leaving the Zenin clan and forcing change. In battle, Mai uses her limited cursed energy bullets strategically, but Maki easily counters them, catching the final shot and overpowering her. Mai admits she never wanted to be a sorcerer and lived under constant pressure from Maki's path. Unable to continue, both Mai and Nobara withdraw. The Tokyo team regroups as the Kyoto students reassess their strategy. Megumi clashes with Noritoshi Kamo inside the school grounds, where Noritoshi uses blood manipulation to control his arrows and enhance his physical abilities. Megumi counters with his Shikigami, frogs, nue, and other summons to dodge and disrupt the attacks. Noritoshi reveals his technique can also function like a physical boost, and he pushes Megumi into close combat, trying to finish him with his final arrow and blood-enhanced strikes. Elsewhere, Kasumi is left shaken after losing her weapon to Maki. Toge contacts her through Mekamaru's phone and tries to calm her, but an ominous presence is detected nearby. At the same time, Utahime becomes concerned about Kasumi's safety. A flashback reveals Principal Gakuganji's plan. He had prepared a semi-grade cursed spirit controlled by a whistle infused with Yuji's scent, intended to target and eliminate him during the chaos of the event. The situation escalates when the cursed spirit is suddenly defeated and Hanami appears instead. At the same time, the school's barriers fail and multiple intruders infiltrate the grounds. Juzo, a cursed user, creates a veil to trap everyone inside, preventing Gojo from entering freely. Gojo attempts to break through but is pushed back by the technique's conditions. Inside, Utahime and Gakuganji move to engage the enemy, while Hanami confronts Toge, Megumi, and Noritoshi. Despite their combined efforts, Hanami overwhelms them with durability and power. Hanami declares its ideology, claiming humans are destroying nature and must be eliminated to restore balance. Hanami overwhelms Togi, Megumi, and Noritoshi inside the school grounds, forcing them into a retreat strategy while they attempt to hold her off until reinforcements arrive. Their combined attacks manage minor damage, but Hanami's regenerative abilities quickly undo it. Togi's cursed speech becomes increasingly dangerous to use, as it begins damaging his throat severely. The trio pushes Hanami toward the rooftops, where Togi unleashes a final command that drains him further and leaves him critically weakened. Despite his condition, he continues fighting, showing resolve to protect his allies. However, Hanami remains largely unharmed and continues pressing them back. Maki arrives and joins Megumi in battle. Using enhanced coordination and cursed tools, they momentarily pressure Hanami. Megumi also utilizes his improved technique for storing cursed tools in a shadow space to switch weapons mid-fight. Maki equips the special-grade tool, Playful Cloud, and launches Hanami into the river, briefly shifting momentum. Even together, Megumi and Maki are overwhelmed as Hanami's poisonous branches entangle them and break Megumi's summoned Shikigami. Both are pushed to their limits as Hanami prepares to finish them. At the last moment, Yuji and Aoi Todo arrive as reinforcements. Todo evacuates the injured and gives Yuji the opportunity to fight Hanami directly, urging him to land Black Flash. Yuji struggles initially, but regains focus after Todo snaps him out of emotional anger. Yuji successfully lands Black Flash, significantly damaging Hanami's defenses. Impressed, Todo joins him in coordinated combat. Together, they overwhelm Hanami with synchronized attacks, forcing her into a defensive state. However, Hanami begins adapting and healing, preparing for a counterattack. The battle escalates as both sides fully commit, with Yuji and Todo working in perfect sync, pushing the fight into a new phase of intensity. A flashback shows Todo's past as a street fighter who always sought stronger opponents until a woman guided him toward a more meaningful life. On the battlefield, Todo refuses to waste time explaining his cursed technique and instead analyzes Hanami's movements mid-fight. He confidently declares victory is possible because he and Yuji are not alone. Hanami traps Todo, but a clap changes everything. Todo's cursed technique, Boogie Woogie, allows him to swap positions with anything that carries cursed energy. He uses it to reverse Hanami's trap, throwing her into danger instead. Yuji and Todo begin synchronized attacks, repeatedly switching positions and landing coordinated strikes. Hanami struggles to adapt as each clap disrupts her perception and timing. Yuji enters a heightened state, repeatedly landing black flash hits, pushing his combat awareness to a new level. To-Do reflects on his bond with Yuji, comparing it to his admiration for his past mentor. The two continue overwhelming Hanami until she adapts and retaliates with massive plant-based attacks, nearly turning the tide. Before Hanami can escape, the barrier around the school breaks. Satoru Gojo arrives and immediately takes control of the situation. He easily dominates the battlefield, crushing enemy resistance and forcing Hanami into retreat. He then unleashes Hollow Purple, wiping out everything in its path and obliterating the battlefield area. Despite the devastation, Hanami manages to escape. Elsewhere, Mahito successfully retrieves one of Sukuna's fingers, signaling that the enemy's larger plan is still in motion. The group manages to steal multiple Sukuna fingers and cursed relics, using Hanami's plant-based attack as a diversion to bypass Jujutsu High's barrier system connected to Master Tengen. Geto's group reveals a larger plan still in motion, including a future attempt to seal Satoru Gojo. Hanami is withdrawn from the battlefield with Mahito after the mission is completed. At Jujutsu High, Ijichi reports casualties from the invasion, including multiple Grade 2 and semi-Grade 1 sorcerers. The administration debates cutting the exchange event, but Gojo insists the students should decide for themselves. The stolen items are kept secret to prevent further attacks. Meanwhile, the first years regroup and recover, reflecting on their growth and the chaos they've experienced. To-Do continues acting overly friendly toward Yuji, adding comic tension among the group. The event is then abruptly shifted into a baseball game after Todo insists competition is necessary for growth. Gojo acts as umpire, and teams are randomly assigned. The match begins with both schools participating in exaggerated but strategic plays. Noritoshi questions Yuji's motivations, while Yuji explains he now fights to help others. Kyoto struggles to score. In the final moments, Yuji hits a decisive home run, securing a 2-0 victory for Tokyo. Next, a series of deaths occur in an apartment complex where victims are killed at the entrance after complaining about malfunctioning auto-lock doors. The pattern suggests a cursed spirit is responsible. Yuji Itadori, Megumi Fushiguro, and Nobara are sent with Miss Nida to investigate. They learn the victims attended the same junior high school, suggesting a long-term curse connection. While traveling, they pass another funeral tied to similar unexplained deaths. At Saitama Urami East Junior High, Megumi is recognized by former classmates and a teacher, Mr. Takeda, who recalls past incidents involving missing memories and strange behavior among students. The group learns about a past bravery test at Yasuhachi Bridge, a location known for suicides and urban legends. Megumi suspects a curse formed from those past events. As the investigation deepens, he learns that his sister, Tsumiki, once participated in the same incident and is now in a coma after encountering the curse. This raises the urgency of the case. Elsewhere, Geto's group continues experimenting with cursed wombs, escalating their plans using human sacrifice to create stronger cursed entities. At the bridge, Megumi investigates alone, but is soon joined by Yuji and Nobara, who refuse to leave him. Megumi reluctantly explains Tsumiki's condition and the danger of the curse growing stronger. The trio retraces the steps of the original victims, which triggers the cursed barrier beneath the river. They enter the domain-like space where the curse resides. A battle begins inside the cursed environment as they are attacked by the primary curse and another entity sent by Mahito, escalating the danger. Yuji fights Mahito's deformed curse inside the barrier, dodging its toxic attacks while Megumi and Nobara handle other threats. Megumi notes the domain is unstable but dangerous. Suddenly, Nobara is grabbed and pulled into the walls. She insists she can handle it alone and tells Megumi to continue. Nobara is briefly confronted by a cursed user outside the domain, who tries to spare her if she cooperates. Meanwhile, Megumi clears smaller curses, but senses something deeper connected to Sukuna's fingers. A special grade curse appears, confirming the situation is far worse than expected. Megumi recalls Gojo's advice about being too cautious and hesitating. Remembering how he held back during the earlier battle, he decides to push beyond his limits. He expands his curse technique and activates Domain Expansion Chimera Shadow Garden, engulfing the area in shadows and Shikigami. The special grade struggles but manages to break through the domain. With Divine Dog's help, Megumi finally destroys the curse, collapsing from exhaustion afterward. He reflects on his past and his sister Tsumiki, who has been unconscious since being cursed years ago. His desire to protect her remains his driving force. Elsewhere, Nobara faces Mahito's transfigured human and makes a desperate counterattack. Yuji and Nobara face the cursed womb brothers Aso and Kechizu, who attack in coordination using blood-based techniques. Aso unleashes Wing King and his rot technique, Decay, infecting both Yuji and Nobara so their bodies begin to decompose over time. The brothers reveal they were born from a cursed experiment involving their mother, sealed for over a century, and recently released by Geto's group. Though they claim no hatred, they fight as one unit. Nobara quickly turns the fight using her resonance technique. By injuring herself with nails, she links pain between herself and Kechizu, forcing both brothers to suffer. Yuji takes the chance to press forward, landing heavy blows as Nobara continues to amplify damage through shared pain. The pair switch targets to break the brothers' coordination. Yuji lands a black flash on Eso, while Nobara finishes Kechizu with hairpin, piercing him through with cursed nails. Eso, overwhelmed by his brother's death, tries to escape, but Yuji pursues and defeats him with a final punch. Far away, their third brother Choso senses their deaths and vows revenge. After the battle, Yuji and Nobara reflect on killing cursed wombs that were once human-like. Though shaken, Nobara insists it was necessary to save others. They later find Megumi resting safely with Sukuna's finger, but it is suddenly consumed when Sukuna manifests a mouth on Yuji's hand and eats it. Elsewhere, Gojo reports the mission's success and pushes for promotion of the first years toward Grade 1 status. Season 2 opens with a younger Suguru Geto as he carries out his duties, calmly exercising and absorbing a cursed spirit while reflecting on the nature of his work. Elsewhere, a mission briefing sends Mei and Utahime to investigate a haunted residence once owned by a former company president. Inside, the structure behaves unnaturally. As they explore separately, Utahime notices inconsistencies in the layout, and after regrouping, they realize they are trapped inside a cursed spirit's barrier that distorts space and possibly time. They begin devising a way to escape. During their attempt, Utahime encounters Satoru Gojo, who mocks her fear as the curse reveals itself. Geto and Shoko arrive soon after, and Utahime learns 2 days have passed, hinting at the spirit's time-altering ability. After the situation is resolved, Masamichi reprimands the group for failing to properly deploy a veil. Later, Gojo and Geto debate their roles as sorcerers, Gojo dismissing the burden of protecting the weak, while Geto insists it is their purpose. Their argument is interrupted when Masamichi assigns a critical mission, escorting the Star Plasma Vessel, a girl meant to merge with Tengen. Without this ritual, Tengen risks evolving into something dangerous and losing control, threatening the balance of Jujutsu society. They are warned that 2 factions, the extremist Curse User Group Q and the Devout Time Vessel Association, are targeting the girl. As Geto reaches her location, an explosion sends her falling, but he rescues her in time, realizing enemies are already closing in. Meanwhile, Gojo confronts an attacker head-on. From afar, a mysterious man recruits Fushiguro for the unfolding conflict, setting larger events into motion. Geto deals with a defeated Curse User Group Q member who pleads for help, only for Satoru Gojo to confirm the rest of his allies have already been eliminated. Elsewhere, Toji Fushiguro watches a boat race while discussing his plan. He intends to wait until Gojo is weakened before making his move. It's revealed he's a sorcerer-killer, motivated by money, with a bounty placed on Riko. Riko awakens and immediately distrusts Gojo and Geto, lashing out at them. Despite their explanations, she remains defiant, boldly claiming her identity as Tengen. Her caretaker Kuroi arrives and clarifies the situation, while Geto explains his technique. Though annoyed by Riko's attitude, the boys agree to follow orders and take her to school after learning Tengen wants her to enjoy her remaining time before assimilation. Kuroi reveals Riko lost her parents young, adding weight to her situation. At school, the trio splits up to locate Riko as enemies begin closing in. Meanwhile, Toji explains his strategy over the phone. He's set a time-limited bounty to attract attackers who will wear Gojo down. As the chaos unfolds, Geto confronts and defeats one enemy, extracting information about the bounty placed through an underground network. Gojo finds Riko in the chapel surrounded by classmates, effortlessly drawing attention before escorting her away. Elsewhere, Geto and Kuroi fend off another attacker, though the enemy later escapes. Geto informs Gojo about the bounty and the time window attackers have to strike. As Gojo engages another opponent with ease, the situation escalates when Riko suddenly reveals that Kuroi has been captured, shifting their focus to a rescue. Meanwhile, Riko reveals Kuroi has been kidnapped, forcing Satoru Gojo and Suguru Geto to reconsider their strategy. Despite the danger, they agree to follow the kidnapper's demands and arrange an exchange. After securing Kuroi's release, the group briefly regroups in Okinawa, where Geto questions why their enemies chose such a location. He suspects the intent was to delay them and interfere with the assimilation deadline, though the plan doesn't fully add up. Two first-year sorcerers, Nanami and Haibara, assist in the mission. While Haibara remains optimistic, Nanami shows concern. As tension lingers, Gojo insists on staying an extra day in Okinawa, believing it's safer due to fewer curse users. The group spends a short time together before returning to Jujutsu High to complete the mission. Their return is abruptly disrupted when Toji Fushiguro launches a surprise attack, bypassing the school's defenses. He reveals he intentionally exhausted Gojo by sending waves of enemies beforehand. Geto moves to shield Riko, while Gojo confronts Toji alone. During their fight, Gojo realizes Toji possesses no cursed energy and instead relies on overwhelming physical ability. Using a special cursed tool, Toji fatally wounds Gojo. Meanwhile, Geto escorts Riko to Tengen's chamber. Before proceeding, he offers her a choice to continue with the assimilation or walk away and live freely. As Riko begins to choose life with her companions, Toji suddenly appears and shoots her. He then informs Geto that Gojo is dead. Faced with the loss, Geto prepares to fight back. Meanwhile, Suguru Geto confronts Toji Fushiguro after Riko's death. Toji calmly explains how he bypassed Jujutsu High's defenses, using his lack of cursed energy to remain undetected, along with a cursed spirit that stores his weapons. His heightened senses allow him to track targets with precision, and he admits he chose to eliminate Satoru Gojo first, recognizing him as the greatest threat. Despite Geto's resistance, Toji overwhelms him and leaves him defeated, mocking both him and his fallen allies. Toji later delivers Riko's body to the Star religious group, where he receives payment and learns more about their motives for preventing Tengen's assimilation. Afterward, he parts ways with his partner, who reveals Kuroi was intentionally left alive to further exhaust Gojo. As Toji leaves, he unexpectedly encounters Gojo, alive. Gojo reveals he survived by mastering reverse curse technique at the brink of death. Revived and sharpened, he faces Toji again. This time, the balance shifts. Toji's knowledge of Gojo's abilities proves insufficient against Gojo's awakened power. After a brief but decisive clash, Gojo fatally defeats him. In his final moments, Toji mentions his son being sold to the Zenin clan before dying. Elsewhere, Geto is recovered by Shoko and reunites with Gojo at the Star religious group's base. Gojo, carrying Riko's body, asks whether they should eliminate everyone present, but Geto stops him, noting they are merely followers. The two stand together, yet their views begin to diverge. 1 year forward, Satoru Gojo refined his abilities and operates independently as the strongest sorcerer, while Suguru Geto continues taking on missions alone. Despite their progress, Geto grows increasingly conflicted. He notices a rise in cursed spirits and begins questioning the purpose behind his work, struggling to justify saving people who unknowingly create the very threats he fights. His doubts deepen after conversations with Haibara and Yuki Tsukumo. Yuki speaks about eliminating cursed spirits at their source, suggesting either removing cursed energy from humanity or transforming humans into sorcerers. Geto considers a more extreme path, eliminating non-sorcerers entirely, and though Yuki rejects it, the idea takes root in his mind. Soon after, Haibara dies during a mission, leaving Nanami disillusioned and pushing Geto further toward despair. Sent on another assignment, Geto witnesses cruelty from villagers toward two young girls. This becomes his breaking point. He slaughters the entire village and is declared a criminal, later killing his own parents as well. When confronted indirectly, Gojo refuses to accept the truth at first. Geto later admits his actions, declaring his goal to create a world inhabited only by sorcerers. Though Gojo challenges him, he ultimately lets Geto walk away. Geto takes control of the remnants of the Star religious group, establishing himself as its leader and eliminating anyone who opposes him. Meanwhile, Gojo meets Megumi Fushiguro, informs him of his father's fate, and offers him a choice about his future. Time passes, and the story returns to the present, as Gojo awakens from this memory, smiling quietly. Next, Megumi leaves on an errand, while Yuji tries convincing Nobara to watch a movie, only to be turned down. Elsewhere, Mei and Aoi Todo discuss promoting Yuji, Megumi, Nobara, Maki, and Panda to Grade 1, explaining they must complete missions under supervision before proving themselves alone. Todo believes Yuji has potential, but warns Sukuna could interfere. Meanwhile, Nobara meets Yuko Ozawa, a girl from Yuji's past who has changed drastically in appearance. Yuko admits she wants Yuji's contact, hinting at her feelings. Nobara calls Megumi to help, and together they discuss Yuji's preferences. Megumi recalls Yuji liking tall girls, giving Yuko hope. When Yuji arrives, he recognizes her immediately. A flashback reveals Yuji once chose Yuko as his ideal type, appreciating her personality despite others disagreeing. After a brief reunion, Yuko leaves without confessing her feelings. Later, Yuji rejoins Megumi and Nobara, and they plan to watch the movie together. The tone shifts as they meet Utahime to investigate a suspected traitor within the Kyoto school. Suspicion falls on Kokichi Muta, also known as Mechamaru, due to his remote-controlled technique, but their search leads nowhere. At the same time, Suguru, Geto, and Mahito confront Kokichi in his hidden location. Honoring a binding vow, Mahito heals Kokichi's frail body, but intends to kill him afterward. Refusing to submit, Kokichi activates a massive mechanized puppet and engages Mahito in battle. Determined to warn Gojo about the looming Shibuya plan, Kokichi fights with everything he has, unleashing a powerful attack as the confrontation reaches its peak. Mahito traps him with domain expansion, but Kokichi counters using simple domain, breaking free and damaging him. He then targets Suguru Geto, but Mahito infiltrates the mech and attacks from within. Despite deploying smaller units and launching a final assault, Kokichi is ultimately defeated. As he falls, a memory of Miwa promising to visit him lingers, marking his end. On Halloween night in Shibuya, a massive veil suddenly appears around Tokyo Department Store, trapping civilians inside. Chaos spreads as people celebrate, unaware of the danger, until a strange force begins pulling them. Reports emerge that the trapped civilians are calling for Satoru Gojo. Sorcerers gather outside, including Nanami, Megumi, and others, assessing the situation. They learn the barrier allows sorcerers to pass but cannot be broken from outside, suggesting a deliberate trap. Multiple teams are placed on standby while Gojo is sent in alone to handle the crisis. Inside the veil, panic grows among civilians as Gojo enters the area, ready to confront whatever lies ahead. Yuji, Mei, and Ui investigate the Shibuya incident while multiple veils trap civilians underground. Yuji questions whether Gojo should be operating alone, but the situation escalates as another barrier appears at Meiji Shrine Station. Mei directs the team toward the underground levels, where civilians are being herded deeper into danger by transfigured humans. Inside the subway system, Mei identifies the lower floors as active kill zones and sends Ui to assist in rescuing civilians while she evaluates the enemy's position. A scouting crow is quickly destroyed, confirming the presence of a strong curse user nearby. Yuji encounters a locust-like cursed spirit guarding the area and forces it into combat, defeating it after a brutal exchange. The spirit reveals Mahito is deeper underground and responsible for maintaining the barrier system. Mei and Ui eliminate several transfigured humans and regroup with Yuji. They decide to push further down toward the deeper levels where survivors are still trapped. As they move, Yuji continues rescuing civilians while preparing for stronger enemies ahead. Elsewhere in the subway, Satoru Gojo confronts Jogo, Hanami, and Choso. The curse users deliberately expose civilians to force Gojo into hesitation, but the strategy quickly escalates into violence. In a flashback, Geto advises them to keep Gojo occupied by exploiting his desire to protect civilians, while also limiting his ability to unleash full power immediately. As casualties mount, Gojo removes his blindfold and prepares to fight at full strength, shifting the balance of the battlefield. Meanwhile, Geto confirms the timing for activating the prison realm, signaling the next stage of their plan. Satoru Gojo faces Jogo, Hanami, and Choso in a massive battle inside the Shibuya underground. After briefly being interviewed earlier about his importance, Gojo demonstrates overwhelming power, effortlessly defeating Hanami in front of Jogo. As the fight continues, the curse user's true plan is revealed. Suguru Geto explains the prison realm, a special grade sealing tool capable of trapping even Gojo if kept within range for 1 minute. Jogo and Choso are instructed to keep Gojo occupied while Geto prepares the activation. The battlefield becomes chaotic as trains unload transfigured humans and cursed spirits into the station. Mahito joins the massacre, spreading panic and forcing Gojo into a corner where civilians are endangered. Despite realizing he cannot save everyone, Gojo decides to eliminate the cursed spirits first. To minimize collateral damage, Gojo unleashes a controlled 0.2-second unlimited void, temporarily freezing the battlefield and overwhelming transfigured humans with massive information overload. In a short window, he neutralizes hundreds of enemies, preventing further chaos. However, the real trap is already in motion. Geto activates the prison realm, revealing himself as a fake identity controlling the plan. The box transforms and binds Gojo as he briefly hesitates, recognizing a familiar face. Once sealed, Gojo is trapped with no escape. Elsewhere, Yuji, Meimei, and Uiui receive confirmation of the worst outcome. Satoru Gojo has been successfully sealed. Yuji informed by Mechamaru that Satoru Gojo has been successfully sealed inside the prison realm. In the prison realm, Gojo briefly confronts Suguru Geto's imposter, sensing something is wrong, but the sealing process completes and traps him. Mahito and Geto confirm the prison realm can only be reused under strict conditions, making Gojo's sealing a major turning point. Mechamaru reveals he left behind an insurance plan activated upon Gojo's sealing. Though he has already died, this contingency continues relaying information. He confirms cursed users are moving to eliminate sorcerers across Shibuya and instructs Yuji to escape and spread news of Gojo's sealing. Meimei is assigned to protect Yuji, while Uiui assists. Yuji escapes the subway and moves to alert other teams. Nanami's group is introduced, coordinating evacuation efforts and preparing to confront enemy forces. Communication becomes unstable as cursed users begin targeting support personnel. Meanwhile, enemy operatives inside the barrier eliminate Jujutsu staff and reinforce the lockdown across Shibuya. Mahito, Jogo, and Choso argue over how to proceed now that Gojo is sealed. Mahito pushes for aggressive expansion, while Jogo hesitates due to Sukuna's presence in Yuji. They agree on a contest. Whoever reaches Yuji first decides his fate. Yuji reunites with Nanami, Megumi, and Ino, sharing the confirmation of Gojo's sealing. Nanami immediately shifts focus to organizing countermeasures and regrouping allies. Mechamaru's insurance provides tactical intel, suggesting coordinated strikes across multiple stations to dismantle enemy positions. As teams prepare to move, cursed spirits begin advancing through Shibuya. From afar, enemy observers confirm Gojo's sealing and the collapse of resistance. Yuji, Megumi, and Ino attempts to break through Shibuya's barrier after failing to force it open with raw strength. They deduce the curtain must be anchored by hidden foundation artifacts, likely placed in visible or symbolic locations. Their attention shifts to the Shibuya Watchtower, where Ogami, Awasaka, and Ogami's grandson are located. The group engages the curse users in battle. A flashback reveals Megumi, Yuji, and Ino previously discovering one of the barrier artifacts and learning that destroying them could weaken the curtain. In the present, Ino realizes multiple artifacts exist and identifies that Awasaka is carrying one while also resisting Ogami's group. Yuji and Megumi confront Awasaka, but their attacks repeatedly fail due to his technique. Megumi analyzes the ability and identifies it as an inverse technique that reverses the strength of incoming attacks, making strong hits weaker and vice versa. Meanwhile, Ino battles Ogami and her grandson. Ogami uses a seance technique, reviving a body through her grandson, who transforms into a partial manifestation of Toji Fushiguro's power, overwhelming Ino with brutal force. Back at the main fight, Megumi distracts Awasaka with Shikigami while Yuji adapts his approach. Realizing how the technique works, Yuji adjusts his timing and pressure, ultimately breaking through Awasaka's defense and knocking him unconscious. Elsewhere, the battle against Ogami escalates as Toji's manifestation continues dominating Ino. Nanami discovers Kiyotaka's lifeless body, forcing him to confront the growing sense of helplessness in Shibuya. Elsewhere, Mei eliminates criminals in the underground sewers alongside Ui, treating the chaos with cold efficiency. Yuji and Megumi realize the barrier preventing sorcerers from entering has disappeared, leaving only the remaining curtains trapping civilians in Gojo's sealed location. As the situation escalates, Megumi spots Ino falling from a height, and Yuji rushes to save him. At the same time, Ogami orders her grandson, now partially overtaken by Toji Fushiguro's revived soul, to eliminate remaining sorcerers. However, Toji fully awakens within the vessel, immediately killing Ogami and turning the situation uncontrollable. Elsewhere, Maki and Nobara battle cursed spirits while processing Kiyotaka's possible death. Nobara and Akari are soon confronted by a cursed user responsible for previous attacks. The man wields a strange handblade technique and targets Akari, forcing Nobara into a defensive fight. Despite her efforts, she is overwhelmed, and Akari is severely injured in front of her. Nanami arrives and immediately takes control of the situation, brutally overpowering the attacker and incapacitating him in a single exchange. Nobara witnesses Nanami's overwhelming strength firsthand. Nanami then instructs them to regroup and locate Nida, while he proceeds deeper into the underground area. Meanwhile, Mei encounters a special-grade cursed spirit sent by Geto's forces and prepares to fight it with Ui's support. Nanami confirms Akari's survival and prepares to move toward the lower levels to reunite with other sorcerers. Yuji encounters Choso, who arrives driven by vengeance and intent on killing him. Yuji fights with Choso. Choso questions Yuji about the last words of the two men he killed. Yuji admits he doesn't remember but recalls one of them crying, which enrages Choso since they were his brothers, Eso and Kechizu. As the fight intensifies, Yuji studies Choso's movements to counter his technique. Mechamaru contacts Yuji and directs him toward a bathroom, setting up a plan to weaken Choso. He provokes Choso into entering the area, and during the clash, Yuji attacks as one of Mechamaru's devices is destroyed. Choso realizes his convergence technique has been disrupted due to the water-filled environment. Despite this, Choso overwhelms Yuji and slams him into a wall, leaving him unconscious. Within Yuji, Sukuna mocks his defeat. Suddenly, Choso experiences strange visions of Yuji sharing a meal with him and his brothers, memories that never existed. Confused by Yuji's presence in them, Choso questions their meaning. Meanwhile, two women discover Yuji's unconscious body and begin planning their next move. Mei confronts the smallpox deity while shielding Ui from its infection. She studies the curse's pattern, confirms Ui's role in her strategy, and uses her technique to exorcise it. With the threat gone, they prepare to face Suguru Geto's double. Elsewhere, Kento Nanami, Maki Zenin, and Naobito Zenin reach the avenue exit and encounter Dagon. They clash, with Naobito pressing him using his speed-based technique. Dagon responds by activating his domain, pulling them into a tropical space filled with Shikigami. Naobito counters with an anti-domain method to reduce the guaranteed hits. As Dagon targets Maki, Megumi Fushiguro arrives and deploys his own domain to disrupt Dagon's control. Using the opening, Maki attacks while Nanami and Naobito support her. Megumi explains he will force an exit by creating a breach in the domain. Nanami orders everyone to regroup around him as Dagon realizes their plan, when Toji Fushiguro suddenly appears on the battlefield. Toji Fushiguro emerges through the gap in Megumi Fushiguro's domain, takes Maki Zenin's weapon, and advances on Dagon. It's revealed he now moves as a vessel through Ogami's grandson. He overwhelms Dagon with raw physical ability and exorcises him, collapsing the domain. Immediately after, he drags Megumi away and confronts him. Elsewhere, Jogo arrives, mourns Dagon, and incinerates Kento Nanami, Naobito Zenin, and Maki. He senses Ryomen Sukuna's presence and finds Yuji Itadori unconscious beside two girls, Mimiko Hasaba and Nanako Hasaba, who have already fed Yuji a finger. Jogo burns them and forces more fingers into Yuji, pushing the total past 15. Sukuna awakens, making Jogo kneel. The girls ask him to free Suguru Geto, but Sukuna kills them for trying to command him. He then turns to Jogo, who declares his goal of fully reviving him and proposes a future binding vow. Sukuna declines, offering a different condition. If Jogo lands a single hit, he'll cooperate, then prepares to unleash destruction across Shibuya, while Jogo accepts the challenge. Megumi Fushiguro clashes with Toji Fushiguro as their fight intensifies. Elsewhere, Panda urges Atsuya Kusakabe to search for Satoru Gojo, but Kusakabe insists on helping civilians while secretly avoiding the underground area. Hostile curse users confront them, forcing a standoff. During the battle, Masamichi Yaga speaks with Shoko Yeri about her responsibilities. Toji studies Megumi closely and realizes he is his son. Memories surface of trying to sell him to Naobito Zenin and moments with his wife. In the present, Toji asks Megumi his name, then abruptly ends his own life after hearing it. Megumi plans to regroup, but is suddenly struck by Haruta Shigemo. A flashback shows Nanako Hasaba arguing with other allies about saving Suguru Geto, but they refuse. Back in the present, more followers warn Kusakabe and Panda to step aside as a clash erupts between Ryomen Sukuna and Jogo. Jogo unleashes a massive meteor, and after a brief exchange about his ambitions and existence alongside Hanami and Dagon, Sukuna acknowledges his strength before killing him. Uraume appears as a monstrous figure approaches Shigemo, while Megumi lies unconscious. Megumi Fushiguro prepares a forbidden ritual, recalling Satoru Gojo explaining the violent history between the Zenin and Gojo clans, where both leaders ultimately killed each other. As Megumi proceeds, Ryomen Sukuna senses his intent and leaves Uraume, convinced his freedom is close. Megumi summons Mahoraga and is immediately attacked. Mahoraga turns on Haruta Shigemo, who panics and pleads for it to be stopped. Sukuna intervenes, saving him and recognizing Megumi's plan to sacrifice himself through the ritual. Wanting Megumi alive for his own reasons, Sukuna engages Mahoraga in a destructive battle across the city. He eventually unleashes his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine, overwhelming and defeating it. Sukuna dismisses Shigemo, but he soon dies anyway. Afterward, Sukuna moves Megumi to safety and returns to the battlefield. Control shifts back to Yuji Itadori, who is horrified by the devastation around him and breaks down, wishing for his own end to prevent further loss of innocent lives. Nearby, Kento Nanami walks through the subway, badly injured. Yuji Itadori wanders through the chaos, shaken by recent destruction. Nearby, Kento Nanami, heavily injured, faces a swarm of curses. As he fights, he reflects on the life he wanted beyond sorcery. Yuji senses him and rushes toward his voice, but Mahito appears before Nanami, revealing he has been watching him. Nanami understands his end is near and notices Yuji arriving. He entrusts Mahito to him, then is killed in front of Yuji. Overcome with rage and grief, Yuji attacks Mahito, demanding to know why he takes pleasure in destroying lives. Mahito claims they are alike, both driven to kill, and says Yuji must accept this truth to defeat him. Their fight continues as Mahito reveals a contingency, splitting himself into two bodies. One keeps Yuji engaged, while the other moves elsewhere. The second half confronts Nobara Kugisaki, who prepares to fight back. Mahito advances on her, intending to kill her and use her death to break Yuji. Nobara Kugisaki recalls entering the curtain to save civilians, only to find them already dead. In the present, she and Yuji Itadori battle separate forms of Mahito. Using her technique, Nobara links damage between the clones, giving Yuji an advantage. Her opponent retreats underground, and she pursues. The clone fighting Yuji also withdraws, aiming to reunite. As they cross paths, Mahito strikes Nobara, landing a fatal blow before Yuji can stop him. In that moment, Nobara's past surfaces, her bond with Fumi, welcoming her despite being an outsider, and the time they spent together. They often met Saori, whose presence shaped Nobara deeply. Saori's departure left a lasting mark, and Nobara eventually left the village for Tokyo after parting with Fumi. In the present, Saori reflects on those memories elsewhere, while Nobara, facing death, accepts her life. She asks Yuji to tell others she lived fully. Yuji watches helplessly as she collapses after Mahito's attack. Yuji Itadori struggles to process the apparent loss of Nobara Kugisaki as Mahito continues mocking him and moves in for the kill. Before Mahito can finish him, Aoi Todo arrives and rescues Yuji using his technique. A flashback shows Todo and Akari Nitta near the site of Satoru Gojo's ceiling, where Todo shifts focus to protecting allies instead of rigid planning. In the present, Todo forces Yuji to regain composure, reminding him that fallen comrades will live on within them and urging him to decide what they entrusted him with. He tells Yuji to move at his own pace, but to keep fighting. Shoko Ieri-like medical support is implied through Nitta, who stabilizes Yuji's condition and notes Nobara still has a chance of survival. To-Do engages Mahito directly, and Yuji soon rejoins the fight. Meanwhile, a side moment shows Kokichi Muta, Mechamaru, speaking with Kasumi Miwa, revealing his wish to protect someone important to him before saying goodbye. Back in the main battle, Yuji and Todo press Mahito together. The fight escalates as Mahito changes tactics, forcing them out of the subway and onto the surface. He continues taunting Yuji, challenging him to push harder if he wants to stop him. Yuji Itadori and Aoi Todo continue their battle against Mahito across Shibuya. Mahito summons polymorphic soul isomers to separate them, but Todo quickly destroys them and rejoins Yuji, frustrating Mahito. He then activates his domain expansion to pressure Yuji, while Todo notices something abnormal in his arm and cuts it off to prevent further harm. Mahito follows up with a black flash, but Todo manages to protect himself using a cursed energy barrier around his body. Despite Mahito's attempt to finish him, Yuji and Todo counter together, allowing Yuji to land a black flash on Mahito. Injured and exhausted, Todo collapses but entrusts Yuji with finishing the fight. Mahito evolves his form and overwhelms Yuji, but Yuji refuses to give up. With timing support from Todo, Yuji lands another black flash that disrupts Mahito's transformation and forces him to cough up transfigured humans. Yuji confronts Mahito directly, stating he accepts their similarity but will dedicate his life to eliminating curses like him. Terrified, Mahito tries to escape, but Suguru Geto's body, controlled by the doppelganger, arrives. Mahito, now desperate, begs him for help. Panda searches for Atsuya Kusakabe, and once they meet, they discuss Yuji's situation. Kusakabe openly states he would support executing Yuji Itadori if necessary. Meanwhile, Mei handles business over the phone, while Choso begins searching for the truth behind his connection to Yuji. At the same time, Mahito is absorbed by the doppelganger controlling Suguru Geto's body. Yuji rushes toward the doppelganger, demanding he release Satoru Gojo from the prison realm. The doppelganger introduces Uzumaki, a technique that compresses absorbed cursed spirits into a concentrated burst of cursed energy, and uses it to attack Miwa. Though Momo Nishimiya, Kasumi Miwa, Kusakabe, and Utahime Iori intervene. Panda arrives to support Yuji, while Noritoshi Kamo is identified as the true identity behind the body, not Geto. Utahime explains Noritoshi's background, while Choso becomes enraged after realizing Noritoshi manipulated him into targeting Yuji. Uraume arrives and halts the confrontation using reverse curse technique. Choso's unique blood perception ability confirms Yuji as one of his brothers, strengthening his resolve to fight for him. Choso clashes with Noritoshi, while Panda, Yuji, and Kamo attempt to coordinate a plan. Uraume overwhelms the battlefield, easily countering attacks, including Momo's. As Uraume prepares to capture Yuji, Yuki Tsukumo arrives and intervenes, recognizing the body as Geto's. She calmly asks Noritoshi about his type of woman. Yuki Tsukumo continues questioning Noritoshi Kamo about his ideology, exposing flaws in his optimization plan for humanity. Noritoshi explains he intends to create destruction beyond his own control and confirms he has extracted and modified idol transfiguration, marking non-sorcerers in advance and altering their brains to awaken as sorcerers or vessels. He reveals these marked individuals will soon awaken and be forced into combat to better understand cursed energy. He references different types of humans connected to cursed energy, including vessels like Yuji Itadori and technique users like Junpei, while hinting at deeper manipulation involving remnants of past contracts with cursed spirits. During the chaos, Choso injures Uraume, disrupting the battlefield briefly. Noritoshi continues speaking with confidence, mocking Yuki and confirming the scale of his plan. He expresses anticipation for Sukuna's role and a return to the golden age of sorcery. Elsewhere, the aftermath of Shibuya causes panic as the government debates whether to reveal cursed spirits to the public, while chaos spreads among civilians. In a separate incident, a girl in a shop is targeted by a cursed spirit, but Yuta Okotsu arrives and exorcises it with the help of Rika Orimoto. Yuta briefly asks about the girl's mother before the situation escalates. It's revealed through flashback that Yuta has been ordered by Jujutsu HQ to assassinate Yuji, and he receives official confirmation of the mission. The series closes with Yuji standing on a bridge as massive cursed spirits rise from the ocean. Third season opens as Yuji Itadori repeatedly washes his hands, unable to remove the blood covering them, while a giant severed hand lies nearby. He later runs through the city as a massive winged curse hunts him down. Just before the creature kills him, Yuta Okotsu appears and slashes it apart, though he immediately turns his blade toward Yuji and relentlessly attacks him. At the Zenin estate, Naoya Zenin learns Maki Zenin is near death and reacts coldly. Soon after, Naobito's death is confirmed and his will is read. Naoya is named heir and receives the family's cursed tools, but if Satoru Gojo remains sealed, Megumi Fushiguro will inherit leadership instead. Furious, Naoya decides to kill Megumi. Elsewhere, Yuji and Choso work together to eliminate curses roaming the city. Yuji lures hordes into a tunnel where Choso wipes them out using blood manipulation. Their teamwork is interrupted when Naoya attacks, overwhelming both with his speed while planning to use Yuji to draw out Megumi. The battle shifts again as Yuta arrives and joins forces with Naoya. Yuta pursues Yuji while Naoya keeps Choso occupied. Despite Yuji resisting and even breaking Yuta's sword with a knife, Yuta's cursed energy and unpredictable attacks corner him. When Yuji sees an opening, Rika Orimoto suddenly restrains him from behind. Yuta approaches, apologizes quietly, and stabs Yuji through the heart. Megumi Fushiguro leaves his sister behind as Yuji Itadori lies dying elsewhere, causing Ryomen Sukuna to sense his fading life. Inside the tunnel, Choso battles Naoya Zenin, whose incredible speed overwhelms him. Choso activates Flowing Red Scale to enhance his abilities, but Naoya still lands repeated attacks and stabs him to weaken his blood manipulation. While fighting, Naoya mocks his older brothers, but Choso argues an older sibling's role is to guide the younger generation. The conversation distracts Naoya long enough for Choso to flood the tunnel with blood. As Naoya struggles to escape, Choso unleashes Supernova, exploding blood orbs and finally bringing him down. Before Choso can finish him, Yuta Okotsu intervenes and knocks Choso unconscious, offering to heal Naoya in exchange for confirming Yuji's death. A flashback reveals Yuji's mother had stitches on her forehead, exposing her connection to Kenjaku. Soon after, Yuji awakens beside Yuta, who admits he never intended to truly kill him. Acting on Satoru Gojo's request, Yuta used reverse curse technique to revive him after stopping his heart. Megumi reunites with Yuji and explains the culling game created by Noritoshi Kamo. He asks Yuji to help save Tsumiki Fushiguro, and Yuji reluctantly agrees. After failing to get answers about Nobara Kugisaki, the group heads to find Master Tengen with help from Choso. Joined by Maki Zenin and Yuki Tsukumo, they reach Tengen's chamber, where the immortal sorcerer finally appears before them. Master Tengen greets the group, while Yuji Itadori questions their altered appearance. Tengen explains that after the loss of star plasma vessels, their existence evolved beyond humanity, becoming closer to the world itself. The group asks about Kenjaku and how to access the prison realm. Tengen agrees to help, but demands protection, assigning Yuki Tsukumo and Choso to remain as bodyguards against Kenjaku. Tengen explains Kenjaku's plan to trigger mass evolution across Japan by assimilating humanity with them, enabled by their cursed spirit-like state. They reveal the system relies on fate connecting Tengen, the star plasma vessel, and the Six Eyes. With Satoru Gojo sealed and past interference by Toji Fushiguro disrupting that link, Kenjaku can proceed using the culling game as preparation. The game spans 10 colonies, managed by the system itself through Kogane, where players earn points by killing. Tengen explains a key condition. The only way to stop the game is by participating and adding a new rule. They also reveal a participant known as Angel, who can extinguish cursed techniques and may free Gojo from the prison realm. The group splits. Yuki and Choso stay with Tengen, Maki Zenin returns for cursed tools, Yuta Okatsu works alone, and Yuji with Megumi Fushiguro recruit Kinji Hakari, a powerful suspended student. After the group departs, Yuji thanks Choso. The scene shifts to a struggling stand-up comedian, revealed as Fumihiko Takaba, who is introduced as a culling game participant. Maki Zenin returns to the Zenin household, where she is immediately confronted by Naoya Zenin, who insults her and looks down on her abilities. She proceeds toward the armory, despite being unwelcome, recalling how Megumi Fushiguro became clan head and allowed her access in exchange for intelligence and resources. Maki had previously supported Megumi's decision, though she admitted she could not create a proper place for her sister Mai Zenin. As they face death, Mai uses her final strength to pull Maki into a vision-like space. She explains that their existence is bound as twins in the Jujutsu world, making them incomplete individually. Accepting her fate, Mai transfers her final gift to Maki and asks her to destroy everything before passing away. Maki awakens with a new weapon and fully awakened potential due to Mai's sacrifice. The remaining cursed spirits are effortlessly killed as her strength surges. Toji Fushiguro's presence is briefly felt through her newfound power. Ogi calls her a failure before attempting to fight her, but Maki instantly kills him and leaves the armory. The Zenin clan sends the Kukuru unit and the Hei squad, including Naoya Zenin, to stop her. Maki cuts through the Kukuru unit without difficulty, then defeats members of Hei such as Chojuro despite coordinated attacks. Naoya attempts to overwhelm her using his speed-based technique, but Maki adapts and reads his movements. Once she predicts his pattern, she intercepts him and destroys part of his skull. She also confronts her mother, who remains silent before being killed in the aftermath. Naoya later returns, only for Maki's mother to collapse behind him after ensuring his death with her final act. As Maki leaves the Zenin estate carrying Mai's body, Momo Nishimiya arrives and breaks down upon seeing the aftermath, questioning Maki's next move. Masamichi Yaga is detained by higher-ups who want to exploit his ability to create cursed corpses for an army, but he refuses. They attempt to use Panda as leverage, yet Atsuya Kusakabe secretly frees Panda out of respect for Yaga. Panda arrives too late and finds Yaga dead. He confronts Gakuganji emotionally but chooses not to fight, instead mourning his creator and expressing grief. The focus shifts to Yuji Itadori and Megumi Fushiguro as they attempt to reach Kinji Hakari, a suspended third-year running illegal fight clubs. Megumi lies to gain access, claiming Yuji killed someone, allowing them entry into Hakari's underground operation. Yuji is forced to fight in a match, where his opponent turns out to be Panda. The two stage their fight to attract attention while barely harming each other, successfully impressing Hakari and his partner Kirara Hashi. Panda later reunites with Megumi and explains he could not reach Hakari directly due to an invisible restriction, likely tied to Kirara's technique. Meanwhile, Yuji finally meets Hakari, who speaks about his obsession with passion, gambling, and risk. Hakari's demeanor shifts after receiving a call, and upon realizing Yuji is from Jujutsu High, he immediately becomes hostile and attacks. Yuji tries to reason with him, but Hakari refuses to listen as the confrontation escalates into a direct fight. Megumi Fushiguro and Panda fight through Hakari's guards and reach the terrace, but Kirara Hoshi detects them and alerts Kinji Hakari. Megumi sends his divine dogs to engage her, but Kirara's technique reflects them back and disrupts their movement, preventing both Panda and Megumi from closing in on her or the door. They realize her ability prevents movement based on a constellation-like marking system. Megumi tests it using Rabbit Escape and confirms that marked targets cannot approach each other or specific points unless they pass through correct matching steps, similar to a directional lock. He deduces it is likely based on the Southern Cross constellation, which proves correct when further interactions confirm the pattern. Kurara retaliates by marking objects, including a car, forcing Panda into danger and temporarily removing him from the fight. Megumi uses this to study the range and mechanics, then exploits a hidden marking method. By transferring marks using a rabbit and a coin, he forces movement toward Kurara and breaks her positional advantage. With divine dogs held back as a hidden countermeasure, Megumi traps her and gains control of the situation. Instead of continuing the fight, Megumi chooses negotiation and asks her to listen. At the same time, Yuji Itadori is thrown into direct confrontation with Hakari inside the monitor room. Hakari repeatedly strikes Yuji while testing his resolve, expecting him to show desperation or ambition to gain assistance. Yuji initially claims he has no passion and only sees himself as a cog meant to eliminate curses, which enrages Hakari. Despite the punishment, Yuji continues standing back up. Eventually, Hakari notices a different kind of determination in him and agrees to hear him out. Meanwhile, the culling game system Kogane announces a new rule added by Hajime Kashimo, allowing players to view others' identities and points, signaling the arrival of another dangerous participant seeking Sukuna. Kenjaku wakes up Sasaki and guides her through a cursed barrier filled with monsters, safely escorting her out before leaving, briefly hinting that he knows Yuji Itadori. At Hakari's location, Yuji and Panda explain recent events, including Satoru Gojo's sealing and Masamichi Yaga's death. Hakari softens after learning about Megumi becoming head of the Zenin clan and begins cooperating with them. Kogane announces a new rule added by Hajime Kashimo, revealing player information across the culling game. The group uses it to identify high-point players, including Kashimo and Hiromi Higuruma, and plans to recruit them to add new rules allowing point transfer and game exit. The team splits. Yuji and Megumi Fushiguro enter Colony 1 to find Higuruma, Panda heads to Colony 2 to find Angel, and Hakari moves to confront Kashimo, while Kirara supports communications. Upon entering the barrier, Yuji and Megumi are separated. Yuji falls into a colony where he is attacked mid-air by players like Amain, Hanyu, and Haba, but he quickly defeats them using close combat and terrain control. Meanwhile, Megumi defeats a sorcerer named Remi and learns information about Higuruma, though her cooperation feels suspicious. Yuji is also guided by Amai, a familiar face from his past. Both Yuji and Megumi appear to be closing in on Higuruma, but conflicting directions suggest they are being misled as their searches continue in different locations. Hiromi Higuruma is shown in a flashback as a lawyer handling a case involving Keita Oe, accused of murdering 2 people. Keita insists he is innocent after being linked to a knife with victim blood. Higuruma investigates and finds evidence suggesting another NGO worker is the real culprit, along with alibi footage clearing Keita, leading to an initial acquittal. However, in a second trial, biased judges ignore evidence and convict Keita anyway. Devastated, Higuruma triggers his cursed technique as a gavel manifests and a Shikigami appears, forming his domain, deadly sentencing. A flashback shows Remi witnessing Yuji Itadori stopping bullies in school, leaving a strong impression on her. In the present, Remi leads Yuji to Higuruma's theater-like hideout. Yuji enters alone, while Megumi is tricked by Amai and brought to Reggie Star, who explains the culling game's structure and how regions are being thinned so only the strongest like Higuruma and Hajime Kashimo remain, suggesting Kenjaku plans a final phase. Higuruma refuses Yuji's request for points, criticizing the broken legal system. Yuji immediately attacks, forcing Higuruma to activate deadly sentencing. Meanwhile, Kenjaku is shown meeting with government officials, advancing his broader plan. Yuji Itadori charges at Hiromi Higuruma, but his attack is halted as Higuruma activates his domain, deadly sentencing. Both are transported into a courtroom where Judgment presides, forcing Yuji into a trial where he must plead guilty, innocent, or remain silent. Yuji chooses to defend himself, but evidence presented shows he entered a pachinko establishment and received money there, leading Judgment to declare him guilty and apply confiscation. The battle resumes outside the domain, where Yuji realizes he has lost control over his cursed energy. Higuruma demonstrates rapid growth as a sorcerer, having eliminated multiple players and accumulated over 100 points within days. Despite Yuji's efforts, Higuruma overwhelms him with his enlarged gavel, showcasing superior technique and domain-enhanced precision. When Yuji attempts a counterattack, Higuruma instead tries to bury him with a heavy strike, pushing Yuji into a desperate state. Yuji then requests a retrial, briefly resetting the domain. In the second trial, Judgment accuses Yuji of mass murder in Shibuya. Yuji admits guilt without hesitation. As punishment escalates, Higuruma is granted the executioner's sword, capable of killing with a single touch. However, he hesitates upon learning that Ryomen Sukuna was responsible for controlling Yuji during the massacre. Before the final blow, Higuruma stops and cancels his technique, acknowledging Yuji's accountability while also recognizing his lack of control over Sukuna. Yuji insists he is still responsible for not stopping it. Higuruma accepts this and chooses to assist him, contributing a point toward the culling game rule changes before leaving, distancing himself from Yuji to avoid being weighed down by his guilt. Megumi Fushiguro confronts Reggie Star, who explains that Kenjaku is preparing to act once only the strongest remain in the culling game. Megumi rejects his ideology and demands his points, leading to a clash where Reggie summons allies like Chizuru and Iori to overwhelm him. Megumi counters using Nue and other Shikigami, but Iori's explosive body part technique forces him into constant defense. Meanwhile, Remy tries to manipulate Megumi, but continues fighting alongside Reggie's group. When Kogane announces a new rule mid-battle, Megumi shifts mindset, deciding survival matters more than point collection. The fight escalates as Megumi begins fighting with lethal intent, throwing opponents from buildings and adapting aggressively. Iori's exploding attacks are intercepted when Fumihiko Takaba unexpectedly intervenes, shielding Megumi and fighting with absurd confidence despite heavy injury, disrupting the enemy's coordination. Using the opening, Megumi separates Reggie and Iori. Takaba holds Iori back while Megumi pursues Reggie, combining Nue and Max Elephant to flood the battlefield and expose Reggie's technique, which manifests objects through receipts. Reggie counters with various stored items, even using a spa receipt to heal himself temporarily. The fight shifts to a gymnasium, where Reggie launches a barrage of environmental attacks, including trucks and debris, forcing Megumi into defense. Reggie believes victory is near, but Megumi reveals he intentionally needed an enclosed space to activate his plan. As Reggie realizes too late, Megumi activates his domain expansion, engulfing the area in darkness. Reggie Star counters Megumi Fushiguro inside the domain clash by using a defensive technique similar to Simple Domain, but it proves ineffective since Megumi's domain lacks a true sure-hit effect. Reggie is left exposed and takes damage as Megumi exploits the opening. Reggie responds by summoning multiple cars through his receipt-based technique, increasing their weight within Megumi's shadows and forcing him down. Megumi counters by summoning Max Elephant above Reggie, creating a deadlock where both are crushed by opposing forces. Despite this, Reggie survives long enough to attempt a final move. He uses a new receipt to summon a massive house, forcing Megumi to retreat into the shadows at the last moment, causing the structure to collapse and drop both fighters into a lower flooded level. Exhausted and nearly out of cursed energy, they engage in close combat. During the exchange, Megumi reveals his hidden strategy. Divine Dogs, which had been feigning defeat, ambushes Reggie and kills him. Before dying, Reggie transfers his points to Megumi. Elsewhere, Fumihiko Takaba overwhelms Iori using his reality-altering comedic technique, where anything he finds funny becomes real, making him effectively untouchable despite injuries. After Reggie's death, Kogane notifies Iori, who abandons the fight. Remy escapes, and Megumi, exhausted, spares her before collapsing. As he loses consciousness, he is approached by Angel. Meanwhile, Yuta Okatsu continues dominating Sendai Colony by eliminating a major sorcerer, leaving only a few opponents remaining as the culling game escalates. Yuta Okatsu reflects on the aftermath of his fight with Dhruv and decides to handle the situation in Sendai Colony alone, aiming to secure 400 points and eventually confront Kenjaku. While escorting civilians, he is attacked by a swarm of cursed cockroaches led by Kurorushi, forcing Yuta to release Rika to protect them. Kurorushi drags Yuta away and attacks relentlessly, forcing him to reveal reverse curse technique to survive. After a brutal exchange, Yuta destroys Kurorushi using a charged burst of cursed energy, but immediately faces another opponent, Takako Uro, whose space-distorting technique disrupts his attacks and overwhelms him. The situation escalates when Ryu Ishigori enters the battlefield, turning the clash into a three-way fight. Ishigori fires massive cursed energy blasts, forcing Yuta to prioritize protecting civilians while defending himself. Uro and Ishigori both pressure Yuta, pushing him into a defensive state. Realizing the need for full power, Yuta fully manifests Rika, gaining enhanced recovery and a combat boost. The battle evolves into a chaotic four-way domain-level conflict as all three sorcerers attempt domain expansion simultaneously. But Kurorushi reappears and disrupts the clash, breaking the domains and injuring multiple fighters. In the chaos, Ishigori defeats Kurorushi and knocks Uro out of the fight. Yuta and Ishigori become the final combatants, exchanging high-level cursed energy blasts and close combat. Yuta cleverly redirects Ishigori's massive beam back onto him, securing the upper hand. Though Ishigori survives, he is defeated and willingly transfers his points to Yuta, as does Uro, while warning him that the true dangers in the culling game are still far beyond what he has faced so far.